Now, that table takes into consideration the years of service, and it has got the percentage. So for anything that is 15 years or more, the percentage must, or the resignation figures must be increased by 100%. So which means then that figure for Deliga, if we increase it by 100%, because Deliga has been with the government for 15 years, it works out to 1.9 million. Now, that is Deliga's cash resignation benefit. Now, according to the Government Employee Pension Fund Guide and the definition of the pension interest, it means therefore that the Deliga's divorce settlement will be based on 1.9 million, which is his cash resignation benefits. As I said, according to 2012 divorce laws, the Deliga would pay 50% of that 1.944 million to his wife, which work out to be 972 million, obviously 972,000, obviously subject to taxation. That is very important. Now, Deliga will then remain with the balance of 972,000 on his fund, plus the divorce debt of 972,000. Now, this divorce debt is the amount that Deliga paid to his wife. So this is now becoming the divorce debt within the fund. So which means then Deliga has got a balance of a pension of 972 and the debt of 972 within the same pension. What is the implication of this? The implication of this is that if at any time Deliga still have to pay this money back to the fund, by the way, for the duration that he's still employed by the state and being a member of the pension fund. So, but let's say for unforeseen reasons, Deliga has to leave his job a year after his divorce while he's still owing this money. So which means then Deliga will then, from this amount, will have to settle that amount and walk away with nothing. So this is all subject to taxation. Now the question is, if Deliga's divorce settlement calculations were based on his cash resignation benefit, was Deliga given a choice? Did he choose this option? And the answer is no, because according to the state employee membership booklet, there is nowhere where they show that an individual has got a choice of moving out of the fund, take his actuarial interest, then pay his spouse the divorce settlement. So, what if Deliga was given a choice? Now, the calculations that we have just seen are based on Deliga's pension interest, which is defined as the resignation benefits at the time of divorce. Now, but the resignation benefits at the time of divorce can also be paid as an actuarial interest instead of a cash benefit. So, what if Deliga was given the transfer, or was given a choice to transfer his benefit to a preservation fund outside the state, now, which is what we call another approved pension fund? Now, he could have done that to the pension fund or to the preservation fund. We could transfer the money to the retirement annuity of his own choice. So, at the time of resignation. So, because Deliga is below the age of 55, his transfer benefit or his actuarial interest would have been calculated based on this formula. Now, take now exactly the same numbers: 27 years of service, 480,000 rand in salaries at the time of divorce, and times all the actuarial factors. Now, his resignation benefit or transfer benefit, this will be his transfer benefit to another fund. 4 million. Now, Deliga was forced to take the benefits that were based on the cash resignation benefit, which worked out to 1.944 million, 50% of which was going to be paid to his wife, with him remaining with 50% of the debt, and so on and so on. Now, the numbers are a little bit different now. Now, if Deliga was given the choice to resign his job, just like they have already done, his transfer benefits would have been 4 million. A significant move from the 1.9 million that was his cash resignation benefit. This would be Diliga's actuarial interest at the time of resignation, which he would have to transfer to any of these funds. The transfer to another fund of that 4 million actuarial interest, in this case, if he had transferred it to a preservation fund, which he would be forced to do because he's still below the age of 55. Because Diliga is age of 55, he would be forced to preserve his actuarial interest. Of course, that movement from the state pension fund to the preservation fund would be tax-free. The preservation fund will then pay Diliga's wife 50% according to the divorce settlement or the divorce decree. Now, his wife will then get 2 million instead of 972,000, right? Of course, this is subject to tax. Diliga will then remain with a balance of 50% in the preservation fund, right? From which he could make a withdrawal of 1/3, the balance and the rest accessible when he turns 55. Now, here, Diliga will remain with exactly the same amount that he has paid his wife, which is 2 million, right? But this 2 million is unencumbered. There is no debt associated with this 2 million. On the other side, he would have remained with 972,000 in the pension fund and the debt of 972,000. That is disaster. But if he had transferred, now that is the reason why I'm asking, was Diliga given the choice to take the actuarial interest benefits or to take the transfer benefits in the form of the actuarial interest instead of the cash benefits? If that was not done, now that's how then Diliga was shortchanged. He's supposed to have a 2 million. Of course, if he does this, then it means that Diliga would have to resign in the true sense of the word, not in the assumption. Okay. Now let's assume that Diliga got divorced in 2021. Now, why 2021? 2021 is after 2019. Now, the 2019 changes did away with the divorce debt. So, which means that anyone who is resigning or who is getting divorced and his cash benefits or resignation cash benefit or the calculations would be based on the pension interest, they're still going to be based on the pension interest. The only difference is that now, instead of Diliga ending up with the divorce debt, after 2019, the divorce debt was done away with. But they replaced the divorce debt with the reduction in pensionable years of service. So basically, Diliga has been with the state for 27 years. Now, after the scrapping of the divorce debt, his benefits will still be calculated based on the pension interest, but they will be calculated on lesser pensionable years of service. So which means if the years of service are reduced by 50%, which is what Diliga will be paying his wife, so the number of years of service that Diliga calculations will be based on will be less than 27 years. In fact, it's going to be 13 and a half years. Now, this is very tricky because it's not like it's an assumption that the number of years will be based on 13 and a half years. The pensionable interest will be calculated based on 13 and a half years. That is, his resignation or his cash resignation benefits will be calculated based on 13 and a half years instead of 27 years. All right, let's look at what the numbers say. Now, Diliga's new calculation or new benefits calculation based on reduced pensionable years of service. So Diliga's cash resignation benefits will now be based on 13 and a half years, which is 50% of 27 years. So if you put that formula back to calculate his cash resignation benefits, it's 7.5% of 13 and a half years for the final salary of 480,000. So that works out to about 486,000. Can you see how that changes? Now, the 486,000 will be increased by 90% because of a service above 13 years. Now, the 90% of 486,000 works out to about 437,000. So the total cash benefit will be now 923,400, from which 50% must go to his wife, which works out to about 461,000. Now, can you see how these numbers are slowing down or are getting lower and lower and lower? So now his wife will be getting now 461,000, but with the divorce debt in, he was getting 972,000. Now, there is no divorce debt now. So which means then Diliga will also remain with 461,000. Diliga will remain with 461,000 in the fund, all right? Now, the problem is now, if we now work the 461,000, now this is the cash based on 13,000. But if Diliga was given an option to transfer his benefit, all right? If Diliga was given an option to transfer his benefit, these numbers will remain the same. They will not change, all right? Because instead of saying, okay, instead of basing the calculation on resignation benefit, Diliga will be given a chance to transfer, to resign from government, transfer his actuarial interest. That actuarial interest will be based on the full years of pensionable service rather than the reduced years of pensionable service. So which means in either way, whether the divorce debt has been done away with, which was good, or there is a reduction, or now they've replaced it with the reduction in the pensionable years of service, it still does not make any difference whatsoever, for so long as the members are not given the choice at the time of divorce to take their monies outside before they settle their wives, the cash settlement. So this is where then this whole thing of the divorce laws with the state pension fund becomes very questionable. The issue is, are people aware of these calculations? Are they aware of the amount of money that they are leaving behind? Are they aware that their benefits that they are getting at the time of divorce are based on the pensionable interest, which is defined as your cash resignation benefits? Now, if they are not aware, then the whole thing becomes wrong, because then it means a lot of people who are getting divorced within the state pension fund are leaving money behind. Now, the numbers then get even more complex if you look at the actual interest of the people over the age of 55. So again, this is the actuarial interest. This is the amount that you have in the fund that you want to take out of the fund to another approved fund so that you can pay the divorce settlement. Now, I need to point out at this point that whether you're transferring to a retirement and you're transferring your actuarial interest to a retirement annuity fund, or you're transferring it to a preservation fund, it's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. Those funds will still recognize the divorce settlement and act accordingly. So yeah, that's the story of the divorce and the calculations behind those clauses of laws. So I would like us to stop here. I think that is all about, the divorce settlement, the debt that was done away with, the reduction of the pensionables in service. But there's still a lot of questions that need to be asked in terms of how the government or the GPF does the calculation. The most important thing about this is that the GPF is not transparent. It does not show how it does this. It only just put vague numbers on their guide and hope that everybody will understand that. Unfortunately, some of it is very wrong. Thank you.